Hey everybody, thank you for tuning in today. I have a pretty special model for you guys today. This is the GT Spirit Liberty Walk F40, and obviously it's based off of the regular F40, and right here I have a Hot Wheels Elite, just to kind of show you guys the comparisons and just so you know kind of like the scale of the model between the two. So obviously this car up here is finished in this really stunning gloss white. It's not really a metallic paint, it's more of just like a flat, just gloss white, but it comes across really nice, and I think they did an excellent job with the paintwork on this model. So, as you can see, this is a pretty crazy looking model. I mean, just compared to the regular F40, I mean, it's pretty noticeable the changes that they made. So I kind of just go over some of the little nuances between the two models. So obviously up front, there's a pretty crazy, diffuser, or sorry, what are these things called? A lower lip going on. So as you can see, it sticks out a lot, and it's got these really crazy looking canards that have these little wings on the edges of them, and then kind of a little thing to hold it to the front of the bumper. Sorry for the lack of description of the words. I'm just kind of blanking right now. So obviously also on the front, they did change the headlight design, and I am now noticing that my model is missing the the surrounding of the headlights. So I'm not too sure if that's standard on all models. It could be, but I don't think it is. So that's the thing I'm going to have to look into later. But looking at the front of the car, obviously a Ferrari badge sitting down here and also on the hood of the car. But on the regular one, we just have the one center Ferrari badge. They also added a air intake kind of on the front, and then two huge hood scoops right here, or hood vents. And I don't really know if we can see any detail behind there. It kind of just looks like it's just black plastic behind there, unfortunately. So that is kind of a letdown, but that's all right. And kind of just to show you the scale between the two. So as you can see, obviously this thing is a lot wider than the standard F40 in the front and the rear. So pretty interesting. Honestly, it's not like too much bigger, it's just slightly bigger. So if you think this car is going to look absolutely ridiculous with the proportions, I mean, maybe more so in the rear, but towards the front, it's honestly not too wide in my opinion. They also added these little front louvers right here, and you can't really see anything through them. I think it's just like black plastic, but they're there, and I think they look pretty decent. There is a hashtag slammed logo on the front and the Toyo tires sponsor. That's pretty funny. I mean, this car is pretty slammed, as you can see. Compared to the regular F40, I think they did a pretty good job on the wheel gaps with this model. But as you can see, this thing is sitting pretty nice on its wheels. So I'll move down towards the side of the vehicle now, and we'll take a look at these wheels. So there are these 6-spoke, looks like they're center lock wheels, and then we have Brembo brakes sitting behind there, and then those are slotted rotors, and they look pretty cool. They added a little gold surround in the inside of the brake, the rotors themselves. So I think they did a pretty good job with the details on the wheels. And then there's a Liberty Walk logo or writing on the side of the rim itself. Obviously the Toyo tires are wrapped around in this model, and that's kind of cool because it ties into the logos we have on the front of it. Obviously on the hood, or the front windshield itself, we have a Liberty Walk kind of sun strip or something like that, and it looks pretty good. And I think they did a pretty good job on the these window wipers themselves. I mean, I only see one of them, so that is interesting. The Hot Wheels Elite variant has a really small, dainty looking windshield wiper, and this was a used model, so I'm not sure if they all look like that, but this one looks like trash compared to what we have here on the left. So I'll keep moving down. Obviously, we have the Ferrari badge on the side of the car, and I think it presents very nicely compared to the Hot Wheels Elite one. which looks fair, but honestly, this one just has a little bit more level of detail. You can kind of make out the tricolore a bit better on the top of the shield. And that looks like an actual badge. That's actually just a sticker, but it kind of has a little 3D effect to it, and it looks really nice. So I'm sure, as you guys know, these GT Spirit models do not open, whereas the Hot Wheels variants do. So that is something to look out for if you're kind of cross-shopping. Maybe a GT Spirit F40, maybe not the Liberty Walk one, but none of these do open, unfortunately. But continuing down, we obviously have this signature kind of split between the lower and upper half of the car, and I think it does look really nice. And just a very quick comparison, this is what it would look like on the Hot Wheels Elite. So this one's kind of a little bit more indented. And I'm not sure like what the real car looks like, but I think it looks pretty decent. So moving on, we have some more logos right here, and obviously the, I don't really know what to call this exactly, but it's obviously like the Japanese sun or something like that. If I'm wrong or just totally way off, please feel free to give me a little history lesson in the comments below. I'm more interested to hear about, just maybe the history behind this car a little bit more. But looking at the side of the car in a little bit more detail, so obviously we have these two air scoops right here. So the lower or the upper one right here just has a little black piece of plastic kind of sitting behind there, and nothing really else to note. There is also another one right here behind the main cabin, and so that looks pretty decent. Again, just they add like a little square plastic dot behind there, and that's more or less what's happening on this lower one as well. So moving on to the kind of the rear section of the car, this kind of has a, as you can see, like the added wide body section in, but my only real complaint about this is that you don't really get like a real kind of distinct that this was the wide body add-in. I mean, on this model, it kind of just looks like it was part of the mold itself, as you can see, just because the line of it on the top just really meshes in well with the body of the car itself. So, I mean, I don't really think that's a huge, complaint. Maybe it looks like that on the real car, but I think on the real car, like, you can kind of tell that these were obviously just stuck on there and then bolted around the sides. And then the rivet marks themselves, I mean, they don't have any screws in them, or any to note that I can see. It just looks like just they're dotted or where the rivets would be. So, not great, but I mean, I think a model at this price point, which, I spent about, I think $100 or $97 exactly on this model. Once these sell out, you will not be able to get one of these for that price anymore. But that kind of gets me on to another point with how many of these they released. So I think you might initially think that this is going to be a pretty rare model and get your hands on it as soon as possible. But when you take a peek underneath, they have the plaque saying how many they made. And then so if I can show you guys, this is number... is that 881 out of 2,600? So 2,600 is a lot of Liberty Walk F40s in this specification. So, I mean, I don't really see this car, adding or, gaining a lot of, value. So that is something to note, but I'll talk about that a little bit more towards the end of the video, and I'll keep moving on through the rear. So coming down towards the kind of the back end of the model, we have some more side vents that look pretty decent on this car. I love all the little cutouts they added. And then obviously the wide body kind of ends right here. Number 56 added around the rear, and then a nice little embossed kind of F40 logo that actually like sits in the paint, so it's not just a sticker on there. So that's a really cool feature. I'll take a look at this rear engine bay. So obviously the rear engine bay has these like kind of slat marks on them, and then you can honestly see a lot of pretty decent engine detail. There's the exhaust box down there to the left, all the headers and everything, and air intakes. I mean, this looks pretty good. It's kind of just unfortunate that we can't open it up to see exactly what's going on in there. And just take a quick peek at the Hot Wheels Elite variant, and I can just open this up because this is a fully opening model. So that's what you would expect to see back there, and we can see more or less going on back here as well. I think where this model stands out as well, I'm just going to move this back a little bit, is the very rear of the model. So as you can see, we have real mesh down there on the kind of this grill right here. So that looks really nice, and you can kind of see the gearbox, I believe, sitting right there. That could be the exhaust. I'm kind of forgetting the word right now. It's probably the exhaust. It's definitely not what I said previously. So anyways, down there below we have 3 tipped exhaust pipes. Obviously they're finished in this kind of a silvery finish, and they look pretty decent as well. The tail lights do look pretty fair. Obviously nothing really too crazy going on with that, but there are these little rivets that sit across the rear deck lid, which I think looks pretty nice. They didn't really add any more rivets up here as well, so that's kind of like the side fenders things I mentioned. It could have been better, but it's okay. There is a lack of carbon fiber. There's actually none on this particular model, which is kind of a letdown. So this rear upper deck wing right here is all matte kind of plastic, but I think it looks pretty good, honestly. Sitting down here as well, there is a little glass blade. So that is a cool feature. As you can see, there's kind of like scratch marks up there. So the quality control, not too great, but that's all right. Moving down towards the rear again, there's a nice little Ferrari badge right there that presents pretty nicely. Liberty Walk license plate, and then a pretty decently large diffuser. And then it kind of wraps around towards the side of the model, which I think is a pretty cool feature. And then just to show you real quick what the Hot Wheels rear end looks like in comparison. So as you can see, there's kind of just a bit more going on with the Liberty Walk, especially with the wing upgrade and then the diffuser. This was kind of just, basic, but you can kind of see through the mesh a little bit better on the whole entire rear side of the car, where, I think really all the details end, between the middle section. So this, I think, did a better job with kind of seeing through the rear of the car. But I think the mesh on the GT Spirit model looks a little bit better. Speaking of mesh, they actually did add a mesh grill up here in the front of the model, which I know it's hard to kind of make out right now. But that grill down there is all real mesh, so you love to see that feature. I know I certainly do. So kind of looking at the interior now, as you can see, we have these nice red bucket seats with kind of square stitching all over them. 4-point harness also in red, and there's a little bit of logos all over that. So as you can see, I'll kind of just try to show you a little bit better. And we'll switch over to the other side. Take another peek at that engine bay, if it'll focus. So, I'm sorry for the glare, but you can't really make out too much detail in there. It looks like there is 6-speed manual transmission, and obviously there's a flat kind of flat bottom steering wheel in there, but really it's kind of hard to make out the rest of the details themselves. Obviously they did add like some stuff in the gauge cluster up there, but you don't really get to take in those details, to be honest. They're just really hard to see with these fully sealed models. The front of the dashboard itself, though, is also really boring. Nothing really to even talk about up there. So overall, though, just a pretty cool model. Looks like, though, these headlight covers are prone to falling off, or maybe just didn't even come with one, but I'd bet that it did. So that is unfortunate for me, but I really appreciate you guys sticking around for this kind of long video for you guys today. But honestly, like I said, this is a really nice looking model. They are producing quite a few of them. 2,600 models is a lot of models around. So I don't really see these taking off in value, but I know people love the F40. I know people go crazy over the Liberty Walk kits. So maybe this will be a really sought after model one day, but I just don't really see this thing taking off. Value wise, like other GT Spirits, and that might be a good thing, especially if you're coming into this hobby late. But I think these will be readily available for a little bit at least, and then maybe once they're all gone, they'll kind of get a little bit more pricey. But this, as comparison to the Hot Wheels Elite model, I mean, obviously, you gotta have a regular F40 in your collection, I think. I mean, especially, it's just such an iconic car. I mean, this is also super iconic, and maybe if JDM is more like your style, this would probably fit into your collection a lot better. But for me, if I had to choose one between the two, and it's a really hard pick, but I'd probably just go with the standard F40. But just because I'm in the situation where I can have both, this is going to be a model I'm going to keep for a very long time. I think it just looks so good. I mean, there's so many features to take in, and it really stands out as a special model in my collection. So I wouldn't be mad at anyone for picking this model over a regular F40 if you just had to pick between the two. So yeah, that's kind of my review on this model. I'm going to give it a solid 7.5 out of 10. Obviously, the lower score due to the lack of carbon fiber, the obvious missing headlight. Maybe if I had had that, or knew a little bit more about it, that it might get a little bit higher score. I think they could have done a better job with maybe the molding of the rear side fenders, just because it looks like it was part of the cast. But not really too much of a big deal considering how much I got this model for. Besides that, though, it's really an excellent model. So, go pick one up if you don't have one already. I really recommend it. So thank you guys for tuning in, and please subscribe if you're not already. We got a lot more model cars to review. As you can see, I am getting pretty full. This is a very small portion of my collection. So anywho, thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.